Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Man's Gift, written by Weird Spectre. 2561 CE, talking of events circa 2324 CE. So sweet children of the harvest, you wish to know why humans came to be the most feared and equally the most respected of the races in the civilized galaxy. And here I thought of frightening old fairy tales were too scary for you. Very well. It begins, as often these things do, with a war. Mankind would later call it the conscription era. To those of you not already feeling the chill on your spines, look it up. Not now, I swear. Children these days need instant gratification. As I was saying, mankind would later call it the conscription era. A war blazed across the vastness of interstellar space, as two vast empires conflicted. One faction, the Corians, were three-legged creatures of immense wealth, with unique propulsion technology, and I can see from your disgust rolling through you that most here have heard of them. The others, of course, were the HFY aggressors. The war was flaring of tensions as old as interstellar flight, the latest of the periodic battles fought throughout the civilized galaxy between HFY and Corians. Worlds were seeded, ships sabotaged, leaders tastefully assassinated. The humans surprisingly took no part in the conflict. So long as they remained exempt from the stately proceedings of things, the human race would stay out of things. Why, they'd even sell weapons to both sides. Their warships weren't fired upon, their traders were treated more or less honorably, you're surprised. But, in truth, the Corians were the most polite. Apparently, they'd spied on humanity some centuries before and had a healthy fear and respect of their young allies the rest of us should have not noted. There were, as always, atrocities. A city or two may have had asteroids flung at them. A careless touch of a button might have very well have lost a few tens of thousands of orbital habitats. Neither side was innocent, and still humanity worked to manufacture and sell to the governments of both races. Nothing, it seemed, could shake them, and the HFY thought they understood their Corian enemies' fear of mankind. Clearly the species was psychopathic en masse. This was, as it turns out, the most assuredly not the case. A diplomatic incident went wrong on the human world of Deathworld. In the colony city stronghold, a troop of Corian prisoners of war, led by a deserting HFY, had sought refugee status. It had been granted instantly, with the promise of mankind's full protection. The HFY were, understandably, displeased by this. An armada of Helljaws descended on the planet, dropping from warp only light minutes away to continue their ballistic trajectories into orbit. The HFY spoke from the position of power, drop an anvil out of an airlock in orbit and watch the city burn. They engaged in a tactic that they'd learned through careful study of human history: gunboat diplomacy. The humans of Steadfast refused. The clue was in the name, really. The HFY aggressors in orbit pointed out their numerical advantage over the defenses that the planet hadn't immediately lost when their ships arrived. The humans acknowledged this, but refused to surrender prisoners. The aggressors pointed out their technological superiority, and the humans acknowledged this too, and still they refused to surrender. The aggressors pointed out their quantum-computed weapon systems, and the humans acknowledged this also, and so the HFY demanded to know, at least, why the people of Stronghold refused to surrender. The last words of the human ambassador, his video image, live cast from the accommodations in which they kept their alien refugees, remain etched in my memory. "Because," he said, "this is a defining moment." The man gestured to the group of creatures cowering behind him, a loose bunching of Corians, still malnourished from the prison camps, and a single HFY in an awkward vacuum suit, unable to leave for fear of subtly different biologies conflicting fatally. "You have orbital high ground. You have tactical superiority. You outgun us and outnumber us perhaps 3 or 4 to 1, in any way that can meaningfully affect the course of this conflict. And yes, you have the advantage of technology." He came close to the camera, sitting down, a sympathetic look in his eyes. "We have something more valuable than you shall ever know. We have the moral high ground. would you strike a defender of a group of starving, disheveled former prisoners, knowing that innocent civilians, many of them children, would die for the crime of living too close to alien refugees? Of the 314 Ashtai aggressors empowered to vote on such things, only one stood against the attack. A single artillery strike flattened a third of Stronghold, and I know exactly how many people it took. 13,672 children died in the attack or the aftermath. 18,901 adults were killed. 3,082 children were orphaned. I know these figures because Steadfast Planetary Network and the various FTL buoys and wormhole links repeated the numbers, burning them into my mind. Humanity was shocked into silence. The free traders who worked with the Ashtai previously, often considered unscrupulous and vicious. One human described a prominent such merchant as a man who would sell his own grandmother, reacted not only with disgust at what the aggressors had done, but actually pulled out of contracts, leaving their severance fees unpaid, and the governmental organizations. They communicated infrequently, blaming delays and cancellations on faulty factories and such. The Ashtai found a smaller human settlement and broadcast themselves torching it with flames of fusion drives, adding another 612 children to the list of dead. Again, only one of the 314 voters dissented. That was when the largest human government, the Terran Empire, contacted the aggressors' voters. "We have a gift for you," they said. "The gift of man, a weapon so terrible and awesome that it shall bring the end of the war with the Kalshians, if only the dead are remembered," they said. The voters, all but one, were caught in an orgasmic lust for destruction and violence such a device might bring. After all, for all of humanity's general lack of development, their ability to reverse engineer the creations of their forebearers, the first people, had led them to a great many gifts of technology, such as being the only species to manufacture vector control technology, and only one distrusted the message, the lone dissenter. The other saw it as a sign of submission, after all. Ashtai shared a mix of pack and herd mentality. Why not also the humans? Their societies were complex enough for even a few thousand deaths to bring them such horror as submit. 7 human vessels arrived 1 Earth week later in the Ashtai home system. That alone was an achievement. Its location must have been bought from the Corians for an immense fee, as no one else had found their star or its worlds on their own. They were amassing, which, like the man who came along in the suborbital skiff to deliver man's gift, scans of the vehicle indicated it to be a cube about 33 centimeters to a side, containing many complicated components the sensors could not gather. He entered the chamber of voting with the man's gift in hand, and bowed deeply with words, "The weapon is not for me to see." And like that, he was gone, his skiff rising back to orbit. Had the Ashtai aggressors had lips, they would have been salivating over their perfect cube that sat before them. In the center of the chamber, the most ingenious scans they'd ever developed couldn't breach the walls of this geometrically ideal gift. Its edges atomically sharp right angles and lattice nano-engineered diamondoids, charcoal gray in color with only the slightest light dancing through it. At last, the speaker left the seat to which the speaker was ordained and clasped the device in a flurry of tentacles. On the box, the speaker found a message engraved in Ashtai symbology, a warning. "This weapon will end the war." The words themselves were like the man who delivered the gift, and the ships which delivered him, unimposing, unassuming. But they carried grammatic overtones and ominous curves and twists of symbology which implied threat. "Should I open it?" All but one cried, "Yes!" All but one were heard. Man's gift slid apart easily, opening like a treasure chest, the upper half forming a lid, folding backwards. Over the lip peeked a vast assemblage, like brass clockwork, but embodied as fractal shapes, seemingly infinitely detailed. The speaker reached in, trying to discern what the people's technology could do to end the war decisively, what the humans had done to improve on their forefathers' efforts. There was a sickening crunch, and the speaker collapsed, its tentacle arms spilling out of the crate broken, orifices leaking pulverized organs. In a flash, something leapt from man's gift, and all the voters were gone. All but one. The lone dissenter. The single voter, the one who'd stood against the Acts of Steadfast, against the destruction of the colonies, who had also counseled against accepting the gift, and dissented against its opening. The dissenter repeated the words of the human message like some sort of mantra. The gift to end the war, if only the dead are remembered. Exiting the voting chamber, the dissenter was knocked sideways by a sound like that of which death of the gods, the trumpets of heaven announcing atomic fire from the sky. I suppose I'll never know what the gift was. Reports vary, but it said the box was taken back to where it came from. The vast powers contained once again, waiting for a new set of monsters to be channeled against. They should have known, really. The ship from which the courier of man's gift came was called the Gunboat Diplomat. Humans place great importance on names, and on the exact meaning of words. Still, I have my suspicions. A weapon based, perhaps, on vector-controlled technology, pulverizing the internal organs of the Ashtai voters. A device, maybe, which heated massively one organ, or bone, or one muscle, to burst like a grenade inside the Ashtai it struck. Who knows? The dissenter counted the vast cracks in the world. 19,684. One blast for each child the Ashtai had killed. Looking outside, the lone dissenter saw the cause. The human ships in orbit had orbitally bombarded the Ashtai homeworld, breaking every convention and law of civilized warfare in the book. Later, I learned the gift was integral to the humans' plan. The gift did not merely kill the voters, it sabotaged the aggressors' planetary defense networks, masquerading as the politicians it had just executed and using their command authorities to disable ships and orbital rings alike. The war didn't end there, of course. Across Imperial space began the conscription to drive out the last of the aggressors, leaving only us, the Ashtai remnant, a shadow of what we once were. What's that, child? How do I know what happened? The cleverest amongst you have already worked it out, of course. Who else but the one lone dissenter could have lived to know these things? I remain to chronicle our mistakes. It reminds me of a myth of theirs I once read about a woman named Pandora and her box. Beneath war and plague and famine, it is said one thing remained at the bottom. Hope. That's what I am. Mankind's hope that they never have to commit such atrocities again, embodied, left alive as a warning. We learned much from humanity, gunboat diplomacy, and lateral thinking, we thought, were both areas in which we had excelled. But man's gift wasn't that box, or the end of the war, or even their merciful design to allow us the freedom when we were last surrendered as a species. Man's gift was the knowledge of asymmetrical warfare. They killed billions for a few thousand dead progeny. And what of Stronghold, you ask? I see it is only more proof of man's madness. From the smouldering crater they rebuilt not only the ruined city's districts, but expanded. I hear the city is now 3 times the size it was when I last was there. Not that I ever get to visit, of course. Go now, children. Run off and play. Don't let an old creature's war stories frighten you. But most of all, never forget the gift the man gave. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, Dragzoon WRE, Holly Sister, Ambrose Cattell, and Quantum Wednesday. Thank you very much.